Welcome back, guys. Today we are going to talk about causes of motion, how the motion has been caused. So let's get started with chapter number 2 for IGCSE, which is motion and its causes. In the previous video, we have discussed about how the motion has been caused, and in the end, we discovered like motion has been caused by a factor which is known as force. So today we are going to be majorly discussing about force. Like what is force and what are the effects of this force, how many types of forces do we have in general. So we'll go from the beginning and from the base of this force basically. First and foremost, the main important thing, like what is force, how we define force. If someone asks you, if someone who is not familiar with physics and he asks you what is force, so to elaborate in basic and in general language, we say like a push or pull is generally known as force. I can give you an example, like what is the example of this push and pull. The basic example is opening a door. A door which you guys have seen in this format in every room in your house, for entering into a room or for entering into a house basically. What we do, either we pull or either we push. Some doors they are meant to be open outside, mean you have to push them and they open the other way. Some doors we have to pull them towards us. So what we are doing basically, we are applying a small amount of force because doors are not that much heavy. In some cases, yeah, in bigger rooms or in bigger halls, the doors are meant to be heavy. That's why you have to apply a bigger force. But for your own room and for your own house, the doors are small. They don't have that much weight, and they are designed in such a way like you have to apply a small amount of force. So what we do, we grab the door from the knob. This is a knob basically. So we grab a door from the knob and we push it. So the whole idea of elaborating this whole concept is like either we are applying a push force or a pull force basically. So this is the simplest definition of a force. Now this push or pull is a type of force which we are discussing here. Now get into the types of forces, like how many types of forces do we have with us. So let's get into the types. Types of forces. Forces are generally basically they have been categorized into two major types, which we are going to discuss here. Which is these two major types, first one and the second one here. Contact forces. You guys are going to be getting imagination of like what is contact forces, which is very obvious from its name, and non-contact forces. Okay, so contact forces are those forces in which the bodies or the objects which are under examination, or which you can say which are under any experiment, they are in physical contact with each other, or the body which is applying a force on another object sorry, they are in direct contact with each other. That is known as a contact force. For example, one of the contact forces, let me create a table list of the table, which is friction. Force of friction is considered to be as a contact force. Why? Because it happens because of physical contact of two objects. Whenever you are walking on a road, inside your house, inside your room, there is a force of friction which is because of contact of your feet and the floor. Friction is what? Is between two surfaces. When surfaces are subjected to be a bit rough surface, so friction has been increased drastically. But if surfaces are not that much rough, they are smooth, so friction is going to be reduced. Friction happens because of what? Because of the contact between two surfaces. If the surfaces are considered to be smooth, we say like, yeah, we have less friction. But if the surfaces are considered to be as rough, so the friction appears to be much more. But why friction is there? Friction is there because of physical contact of two forces, of two objects, sorry. Physical contact of that object. That is friction. The other contact force which you might have heard is known as air drag, which is also considered to be as a friction but in air. Air drag is what? Whenever any object or whenever any substance is being dragged, is being pulled or against the air, is then air is creating a drag basically. And that drag is because air is in contact with the body of that object. That is also air is going to have a physical contact with the body, with the object. And if specifically like what we have seen in air most of the times is plane. So aeroplanes, they do have air drag forces, and they use that air drag forces to slow down their speed, which is known as air brakes. So that air brake is utilizing what? Air brake is utilizing uh, basically contact force. That air is in contact with the object which is used for slowing down the speed. That is known as the air drag. This is also one of the contact force. So those forces which appears to be because of physical contact, they are considered to be as drag forces. Viscosity is one of them. Viscosity is what? Viscosity is a property which opposes the flow of fluid. And why it opposes? Because the fluid is in contact with another surface, which makes the fluid to move slowly. Okay. This is first type of forces, which is very general, which we already knew, which we used to see around our house, which we used to see in normal and daily routine all the time, but we don't know the exact or you can say the content of that thing basically. Now coming towards non-contact forces, what are those forces? Non-contact forces are those forces which appear to be present around us, but they don't make any physical contact with the body. And those forces sometimes are also known as field forces. Why we call them field forces? Because those forces have a certain amount of field around that particular object or that particular body, which is creating a force. For example, let's take an example of a magnet, of a bar magnet. Let me draw a bar magnet for you. Let's say this is north side. The other is considered to be as a south side. So a bar magnet is consisting of two poles, which is north and south. In a bar magnet, you guys have observed most of the times, like whenever we try to place any paper pins near to that bar magnet, those paper pins are attracted towards that magnet in a certain range. Whenever they come closer to a range of, for example, let's say 20 centimeters. Okay, if the distance between the bar magnet and these paper pins or paper clips is 20 centimeters, then they are under the force of attraction. Then they are going to be attracted towards the magnet. And if we pull those paper clips beyond this distance of 20 centimeters, if they are far away 20 centimeters, then these paper clips are not going to be get attracted. So what does that mean? That means that this magnet has a range of 20 centimeters around it, around all four sides. So this magnet and this range is considered to be as the field of this magnet, which is known as a magnetic field. Why we call it magnetic field? Because it is because of this magnet. Because of magnet. That's why we call it to be as a magnetic field. This magnetic field has other characteristics which we are not going to discuss in this chapter because we are discussing only forces here. So the point is it has a field around it. That's why we call them field forces. So these paper clips are not directly in contact with the magnet. So they are away, they don't have any contact. That's why we call them non-contact forces. So as we have been discussed here, the magnetic field. So one of the field forces is magnetic field, which is probably because of the magnets. The other field force is known as gravitational field. Which is very famous and very common. That is because of the gravity of Earth. And we are not going to discuss how gravity occurs and why this Earth is pulling us towards itself. That is another topic which we are going to discuss in some later stages. But for now, gravitational field is because of the gravity of Earth, because of the Earth, because it is pulling towards us, and that is also a field force. We don't need to be in a contact, though we are all the time in the contact because we cannot leave Earth for the most of the times. But you can see those objects which are flying in the air. They don't have any direct contact with the Earth, but still they are being pulled towards the center of the Earth. If you try to throw a ball into the air, ball comes down again. Why? Because of this gravitational force, this gravitational field. So this is also a field force. Third field force is known as electric field. And that field force is because of the presence of electric current. So electric current, moving charges, basically they also create a field around them, and that field is because of those charges, because of the moving electrons, and that is also a field force which is known as a non-contact force. So these are some of the types of the forces which we have been discussed here. Okay, and those forces are basically cause of motion for different scenarios. Like for example, in friction, whenever we apply a force on any object, friction is being caused, and that friction is being happening around anything which is in motion. So whenever anything is stationary, there is no motion. Why? Because there is no force involved in that. And when we apply a push or a pull force on that object which is stationary, it certainly is going to cause a motion in that thing. So this is all about forces in this video. So far we have been discussed different terminologies and vocabularies. So I'm going to mark out different vocabulary for you here in this video today, which is vocabulary for today is gravitational, magnetic, friction, viscosity, drag, and electric. These are some of the vocabulary words which we have been discussing in the whole video. Now in the end, I want to summarize my whole video for you. Today we have been discussing the cause of a motion, basically, which is a force. Definitely. What is force? Let me mark down summary for you. Summary for today's video is we discuss and define force definition, which I told you, like it's a push or a pull, basically push or pull. Secondly, we discuss the types of the forces. Types of forces, I'm not going in detail in summary. Basically there are two types of forces, which is contact and non-contact forces. So contact / non-contact forces. These are the two major types of forces. Then in third part, we discussed contact forces separately and non-contact forces separately. So in contact forces, we discussed friction, air drag, normal standing of a person, viscosity, all these things. And in fourth one, which is non-contact force, those forces are also known as field forces. And we discussed three of them, which is gravitational field, electric field, and magnetic field. These are the three non-contact forces we do have. Thank you for watching my video. Please do subscribe to get more videos like this in your future, and do hit the like button if you like my video. Thank you.